All right. Good afternoon. It is 4 p.m. on the dot, and we are live streaming this CRA virtual workshop with our board members. Hello, Mr. Chairman. How are you? You're muted. Commissioner Lucas, Board Member Lucas.
Good afternoon.
Yep. And we're joined in the room with the CRA team. I know that Board Member Hughes is traveling, and he thought he might be on a layover, but he also might be on an airplane. And as y'all know, Commissioner Street laid his mother to rest today, so I don't expect him to join. But anyway, the board chair Branch, I'll turn it over to you, sir.
Awesome. Thanks for doing this. I'm excited. So I want to, before we get started, encourage everyone to speak as freely as they can, because the point of this is to give citizens how ideas are formed so that they can give us feedback from this commentary in this meeting of ideas that we are shaping much earlier than when we vote on it. So I'm going to encourage that. I, as the mayor, feel like I'm a citywide commissioner, and my job is to be supportive and collaborative and like a research assistant for the commissioners. So, the two items that I have to discuss today are in Janice Lucas's ward, and these are just things that I've been thinking about, and I'd love it. She needs to be leading this charge, and so these are my ideas, and all the commissioners. I don't live in every ward, and they're going to have more points of contact with their ward than I am. And so what I don't want Janice to feel or Ward 2 to feel is I know what's best for them. I need that input. I need Janice to really help lead point on this if she likes these ideas. So do you want me to just start going through one of the documents I submitted?
Yes, but I just want to be clear, though, this is a CRA workshop. Right. So this would be specifically limited to not all of Ward 2, but just the CRA parts of Ward 2, and obviously something that would be in the plan for the CRA that we've kind of already penciled in. So
should I have these Google documents? Should we just show my screen?
I think that would be great. Okay. Mr. Zimmerman, I don't know if...
Yeah, is it possible for Mr. Granger and Ms. Lucas to have videos?
Yeah, just so we know that everything's above board. Yeah.
Proof of life is what it's called.
Yeah, proof of life. That's right. Yeah. So.
All right. So I'm working on that.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That's fine. Just eventually go.
All right. Awesome. Go ahead, Mr. Chairman.
So I will show you my screen. This is a Google document that I've worked on, which I believe is on the public record now. My brain works with Google Documents. I have to write things out and research things. This is a program that we desperately need feedback on. One of the things we've been talking about is we have all these city properties and CRA properties along Glenwood, Millville, MLK Boulevard, ones that the DOT has given to the city over the course of the years. And how do we get them back on the tax roll, get them in the hands of private citizens? And these are really just some initial thoughts that I had. And really, even as of 2 nights ago, I really was... There's a lot of different property types. You've got your commercial corridor up MLK. You've got infill residential lots, and they really could all be treated differently. I don't know if the commissioners have read through this document or not. I gave it a little name called Spark. The easiest way to get rid of or put these properties back in action is to simply sell them. Highest in market values to sell them. The problem with that is someone might sit on them. You have someone, the pipe dream is someone from the community buying these lots and rebuilding the neighborhood, especially entrepreneurs on the MLK corridor. There's nothing better than local growth coming from the areas of building things that the neighborhood needs. So these are just some initial thoughts. Maybe we treat the infill lots differently than the MLK corridor. I've kind of labeled this as MLK lots. Really, it could be, we could draw a map even. This is sort of, either we sell them at market value or we sell them in the hopes of getting something which needs to be defined by the public. of something they want, whether it's what you hear is grocery stores, restaurants, things that the neighborhood needs. And so maybe that needs to be more tightly defined of because we don't want to incentivize someone to build something that the neighborhood doesn't want. And so we really need to do some sort of polling, or maybe we already have that, of what the neighborhood wants. Infill lots are there's only a couple things you can do with them. Single family, duplex, triplex, there's not a lot you can do with them. But maybe those even need to have some sort of scale of things we want. So we either sell things at market value and you do a single family home, or maybe we incentivize people to build missing middle housing, which are duplexes, triplexes, quadplexes, things of that nature. So, anyways, but I'd love to see a deed restriction where if you don't, I would rather sell buildings or rather sell properties or give properties, sell them for $1 to get something. So the pattern of downtown that I've seen is we need sparks. Downtown got a couple sparks, and Glenwood and Millville needs sparks. And so I think it'd be a bad path to sell these at market value and not get buildings built. We want buildings because money follows confidence, and confidence is action, right? Someone has to set the comps for banks to allow borrowing, or banks to have borrowing. So I would love to see a reversion clause, that they don't build something based on what we want or what the polling suggests that the neighborhood wants. And then maybe we even do a scoring program, because again, if our pipe dream of our success story is people of the neighborhood building back their neighborhoods, we need to have some sort of scaling or point system that your most sophisticated buyer, someone out of Atlanta who has a $50 million portfolio, is going to have the best presentation, right, for a property. And so we have to score people's packets differently if we want to incentivize local growth, particularly local growth that potentially might be their first building, brick and mortar business. Those are folks like myself. I was that person. I was a person who had never built a brick and mortar business. And those folks, myself, don't know the systems yet. They're going to ask more questions, and they're going to have a little less unsophisticated packet than someone who's out of town who's got a giant portfolio already. So these are just suggestions of ways to have a point system. Maybe we incentivize minority-owned businesses, or if you already have plans, we want to make sure someone receives the property and then has the cash available to do something with it. So maybe there's even pre-approval letters from banks. We also, what we've seen downtown as a citizen is, again, money follows confidence. And the worst case scenario is a business goes out of business, right? Downtown is still fragile. 3 or 4 businesses leave, and all of a sudden the confidence has left of this district. Okay. And so what we don't want is we give you a property or sell a property and we're like, yay, go build your cafe. And then they fail because it's their first business or they've never done a cafe. And so I was even talking to Michelle Bryan about this program, and maybe we have the SBA group at Gulf Coast, score business plans. So we're getting people who have thought through their business plan, or coaching them up through a business plan, lifting people up. But we want to have people. We don't want to set someone up for failure, right? Someone who has never spoken to a bank. We want to facilitate, all these things to make them more successful.
Alan,
yes.
If I may, on that point before you go forward, that's the kind of that education piece coupled with opportunity is the approach that we've been taking in the LEAD Coalition. I don't know if I've talked with you about the Cornerstone Trust business plan workshop microloan program that we do. To date, we've given 29 entrepreneur businesses $90,000 in small loans, $1,000 to $5,000 since 2020.
Yeah, maybe there's bonus points in the scoring that if they've been through that program and even gotten the grants that you've given. That's a further vetting that someone has. But like you look at Habitat for Humanity, and they have an interesting program where they're not just giving away houses. You have
Got to
to
have sweat equity.
go up,
Yes.
and you gotta show that you're doing the steps, right? Versus just throwing people into homes that then don't know how to take care of them or whatever they may be. So maybe there is a vetting program through Leads or whoever, but we don't want to set people up for failure. We cheer for them and then they fail later.
And I shared that, not to say that lead should be the vetting, but that's the approach that I share with you, that we don't just, throw money at something or provide an opportunity without the structured support for success, to set people up for success.
Yeah.
So,
And then I have some notes from Michelle, maybe veteran-owned businesses. She mentioned on the phone the other day that the VA has a lot of systems to help small businesses, and maybe we really lean on that because the VA wants to help their entrepreneurs, their veteran entrepreneurs. And she mentioned it here of having some sort of 3-phase approach to classes. And so I think we're kind of on the same page of some sort of so we're talking about business plans and things like that. That would be potentially only certain properties, because an infill property isn't really, I guess you can do a business plan for a triplex, but it's not quite as complicated. It would be interesting to tie this program into the Incremental Development Alliance workshops coming up, right? What a success story this would be we bring in this Incremental Development Alliance workshop where we're learning, where I learned, a lot of this feedback is coming from previous Alan of how clumsy I was, but I learned about how to build a duplex and triplex and quadplex from that group. And what a success story would it be to have someone go through those who have never developed something, go through that program, we connect them to banks, and then they get their first property and they build something. That's generational wealth in our town that's life-changing for people. That would be a huge success story, right?
So yes, I like this idea. I like the approach of Spark. And when you're at a point, I do have a couple of things I'd like
go
to.
for it. That's all I got. Go for it.
Okay. So along that same line, hearing from, let me tell you a couple of approaches I've had in mind. One, the grocer developer retail housing project that we've got going on MLK. I've mentioned community land trusts as an approach, a possibility, pulling from how do other people do it? Well, Tallahassee, Leon County have a very successful community land trust, as does Apalachicola and Franklin County. And what this does is bakes in affordability, because you take the land off the cost of development. I've looked at it from the standpoint of housing, but I imagine this might work for the building business approach as well. And one of the concerns I know is folks is like, well, that will affect the market. You've got this house that only cost X amount to build, being sold along others. Well, one of the approaches is that doesn't get that land and that cost doesn't get factored in and doesn't get pulled for comps by realtors. So then it's not a play in affecting the cost of other homes or mortgages in that same neighborhood or neighborhoods. So there are definitely some steps that can be taken to make that work. And we've got some parcels. They're infill, throughout. And one of the approaches we've used successfully is the developer approach. So when I think about building out Glenwood, building out Millville, redeveloping those neighborhoods that are behind the redevelopment in the other CRA areas, I say, well, it's not a blank slate. So we can't start with that strategy that says build X, build Y, then build retail. We're already filling in blanks and pieces and stuff. So how do we do that? I haven't described it the way you just did, but I like that. Confidence follows money. What I've said, money follows confidence, I think is what you just said. What I've said is people don't want to be the first, and they like to be connected with success. So essentially we're saying the same thing. Toward that end, I've talked to some churches who already have land that they've been sitting on for years with the idea, hey, we're going to build something here, some housing or daycare, but not really knowing where to go from there. So that's why your idea again that you gave me, oh gosh, it's been 8 years now. It was before the hurricane, about Incremental Development Alliance and bringing that teaching tool to our community to partner that with development opportunities so that we aren't setting people up for success or leaving them behind because we just put all this property on the open market. And so the community land trust possibility is something we can do with as few as 5 or 10 parcels. You know, it doesn't have to be that we put everything in a land trust, and it can be one of the ideas that we use. One of the approaches that we use going forward, you know, as we look at uniquely the infill problem, different infill challenge, which is different than the MLK Boulevard challenge, which is different than the 5th Street and Business 98 in Millville.
Yeah. Yeah. So whenever I'm tackling, this is a big, complex problem. All the properties are different. And so, but when I attack a big problem, I like to break it into small problems. And so we might look at, like, this is sort of a big program that kind of tries to encompass a lot of things. We might say, what is the smallest lot size? And can we group that of an infill lot, like where you can't really do much besides a single family home on it or a duplex, and break it down to the smallest one and do a program for the smallest lots? Whether we sell them or land trust. I've never dealt with a land trust. I understand the concept of, it's basically like a leasing, is it not? Like leasing the land?
So yeah, the land is restricted to whatever that determination is for the property, but the cost of land is not included in the ultimate mortgage and sell of the home. And so when someone sells the home, and the developer Pedro Kazant spoke to it, saying that he saw that not as a positive, because when they got ready to sell the home, they couldn't sell for the appreciated value of the land. But you know, there's certainly more to look into determining whether that would be an approach for us to take. Yeah. But I dare say, with the number of parcels we have, starting with, you know, a small number like 5 or 10 as part of the series of approaches to redeveloping those blighted areas.
Yes, trying to solve small problems, you make small mistakes. And so maybe that's the best approach. I don't know how the land trust work with borrowing money. I'm sure this has been accomplished somewhere. One of the values in selling the lots, even selling them for $1, is that the person can then go borrow money off the equity of the land and have very little money in the project. So for someone who may have $25,000 to start a restaurant, that really is just equipment and your first payroll and their food. But if you sold them a $50,000 lot or $20,000 lot or whatever it is, they basically have that equity that they can then go. They have to have the mechanism of paying for the note, so they have to have some expendable income, but it basically gives them equity where they can go get a loan easier. And I don't know how that works with land trusts. Brian raised his hand. Look at that. Look how sophisticated. Oh, there you go. Yeah, go ahead, Brian. Oh, you got to unmute yourself. Oh, man.
Move. That is a rookie move, isn't it?
That's a rookie.
Man.
And I was impressed because your Zoom just came down like it was a drone.
My what?
When your picture zoomed in.
Did it?
Our laptops do that automatically.
It's the I think it's the dynamic camera following you around. That's all.
It's this Apple. I'm not an Apple fan. You know, these iPads. Anyway, geez, now I'm trying to remember what I was going to say. So if we sell the land to them and we do so very cheaply, would that not then cause more ripple effect issues like comps for real estate, and that could potentially cause some unintended consequences there that we don't necessarily want, right? But is there another way we can get the same result? Is there like a lease to own or something like that we could do yeah, I don't know. I'm just spitballing here.
So Florida Housing Coalition is a resource that's right in our backyard. Gladys Cook is one of the, well, she's retired now, but she does still do consulting. And there are others in the Florida Housing Coalition who'd gladly come and either do a workshop with us, a meeting, or just, send us some information on how to do the various things that we're talking about where housing is concerned. Where business is concerned, I imagine there's a state agency or organization or nonprofit that we could reach out to as well.
So I'm just taking notes on here. I'm happy to even, I don't know how, I've never been to a virtual meeting. This is really a question for Mr. Zimmerman. I'm happy to make this link public where people can view it, where they're seeing my notes. Whatever makes the most sense as a public record, if this is a public record I just don't know. So
Okay, your note, are you talking to, Chairman, are you talking about your personal notes?
yes.
If they're your personal notes, they're not public record.
No, I think Nevin, he's talking about what he's displaying right now on the screen, which is he is creating a public record.
Yeah, that's
displaying it.
That's a public record now.
Okay. So after this call, do you want a copy of this or do you want the live link? Okay.
Just either one. But I thank you, Alan, for asking. Yes, it would be good to get a copy of whatever is shared. And then we will just put it in the minutes are just going to be, we had a meeting a little bit that we're talking about, very little, but we could attach that.
Awesome. So I'm just kind of looking for things that kind of, what's the next step? Talking is good. Next step for action is my favorite.
Okay.
And then so we need to look up land trusses. And so land trusses, I know a lot of times help pay for park systems. You can contribute the money to a thing. Is that how that works?
So it can be a conservation trust, maybe is what you're thinking of for the park or preservation aspect. But I would imagine that they're the same genus of the same idea, and they're called community land trusts. Some people call them a land bank, and maybe there is a difference in the definition of the terminology, a trust versus a bank.
Yeah, Chairman, board members. So we kind of have two of those just for your situation awareness. So Oaks by the Bay meets that criteria in St. Andrews. And then the Sweet Bay Preserve Park over just to the west of Michigan Avenue, kind of in that 15th Street, US 98, Michigan. That's also a land trust or a land preserve as well. And so we do have a couple of those just as an example.
So are those city trusts? Because I know there are also there's the Bay Conservatory that also has some conservative land trust as well.
Yeah, those particular examples, they're not really in a trust, but it's like a trust. They're just, the city owns them, but then there are restrictive covenants that are on the park because of the funding that came from the state. And those restrictive covenants make it, you can't really develop except very limited. Those are the type, very similar to a conservation trust or conservation easement that the conservatory would be in charge of.
Thank you.
So then a land trust could also have like a lease cost, like, oh, you can do that kind of thing with a land trust?
You could. I've made a note, and if we want to pursue it, is just, we could quickly look at Leon County and Franklin County and Tallahassee and Appalachia and just see. But I believe what Commissioner is talking about is more of a trust to where the property is sold to benefit, or maybe it's a long-term lease, but to benefit affordable housing or some other type of development. But I personally have not looked into exactly how those work.
So the sessions that I've sat in on the past couple of years, having gone to the Florida Housing Coalition annual conference about community land trusts, have been about affordable housing. And last year's conference sessions around this idea or approach included the idea of baking in affordability. And I've oversimplified the explanation of how it works, but that's one piece. When you can take off the cost of land in a house, you can significantly reduce. When you work with a nonprofit developer, again, you can significantly reduce the final cost to the potential homeowner. And so partnering, city land and nonprofit developer with affordable housing contractor, those are ways to significantly reduce the cost of a new home. The opportunities to federally subsidize housing, as we've seen in decades past, don't look to be in our future.
So, good feedback. This is the first virtual meeting. We're still learning how we collaborate between these meetings and carry things forward. Janice, you are welcome to lead this or leave this on me to research and come back. Like we have some big topics. I can run point and come back at the next virtual meeting and say, here's what I know now about land trusts versus selling it and the effects. And maybe I get a list from Michelle or Lena of all the properties and break them into little groups. And we can discuss if the group should be smaller or different. But to me, we have enough talking points to carry this forward to the next meeting, in my opinion.
So I've taken the liberty, not sure how this would go, of looking at, what are the possible steps of choosing lands and that sort of thing. And working with my virtual assistant, created a parcel suitability report. Looking at a list that I was giving a couple of years ago. So this list of properties that I have maybe a year or 2 years old, so it definitely would need to be updated. But just playing around with, 10 or so of these properties to determine what might be the top 5, or 7 to look at. And so they look at ownership, zoning, parcel size, utilities and access to amenities, and other items to score it as a potential inclusion. But I would say that to your where do we go from here is maybe request a virtual meeting with Florida Housing Coalition, maybe at our next virtual meeting, to talk about, what we're to give us insight and understanding of the questions we have about this approach.
Awesome. So if you can arrange that would be great. And then if we could get from staff a list of not just CRA properties, but city properties that could be transferred into the CRA and in the CRA districts, that would be very helpful. It'd be awesome if that spreadsheet included address, parcel number, it'd be dimensions of lot would be nice, or acreage would be nice, just so we kind of get a feel.
I'll tell you what's in this list that I have, Alan, and staff can tell us whether this is outdated or updated or whatever. But it's got the ward, parcel number, ownership title, address, legal description, latest sell date, lift station, zoning, name or function. A GL code is blank. Ownership is blank. Acreage, map with a question. Some say yes, some say no. And then notes.
You said map with a question?
Yes, that's the title of that column.
Oh, interesting. That would be an awesome list. And I'll be put those into I can drop those into a Google map for the next meeting to where all the pins are shown on the screen. And feel free, we can both do it. So you're welcome to take the list that we both get list, or anyone who wants to, and say, here's the way I break them up. And we'll just get different opinions and have that discussion in the next meeting. I'm happy to do some research on land banks versus selling. And we'll just continue the conversation in the next virtual meeting.
So I'd ask if they'd send us the latest copy of the city parcel map, citywide parcel, city-owned parcels.
Yeah, we're actually working on updating that, and hope to have that updated in the next week or so. We kind of combined, because the question I asked was, I don't really care who owns it. I just wanted to have a bird's eye view of every lot that we own, whether it be CRA, whether it be the city, or whether it be housing. And then, as we kind of look at that natural grouping, and obviously the only real limitation is the housing. There's more flexibility between the city and the CRA than there is with housing. But I still think we need to understand, and not including parks in that. I'm just talking like these lots that are, not designated as city parks that we've accumulated over decades, probably. So I hope to have that by the end of next week.
Well, now that you mentioned that, I just resorted this list, and probably 40 of those parcels are already classified as housing infill program, from number 24 to 72. So that's about 40 something parcels.
Yeah. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, board member Lucas, I think, didn't we do that specifically for your ward, create like a heat map your first few months on the commission? I don't know why I thought we did that.
You gave me something in a meeting with Public Works and some other directors, because I'd asked about the alleys and that alley program.
Maybe
And
that's what it was. I know we gave her a map.
Yeah.
Gave you a map. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
So I think this closes the discussion on this item unless Brian has something to add or staff.
No, I really don't have anything else to add. I mean, y'all had a great discussion going. I didn't really have much to.
Perfect.
I don't want to interrupt it.
You're good. So beyond the list, I would say, we want to keep this early, in my opinion, I really want to keep this early idea creation on the backs of the commission, because I love to research stuff. And I think the rest of the commission does too. And so before we really start forming things up so we can give staff clear direction, I prefer them not spending a lot of time on this sort of early idea stuff. Would that be fair?
Yes.
Okay. Any objection to that, Jonathan?
No, none.
Lena and Michelle are like, I want to work on more stuff.
Yeah. They both
I
have
just
said
didn't want
the
them-
word at times.
Yeah, I didn't want anyone to assume like, oh, now Alan's going to throw more on my plate. This is really, I enjoy this this is fun. So I want to keep forming this up, and then at some point we'll pass it to staff. Okay, so next item I have is, and I know, can you see my screen still, about the outdoor seating incentive program?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. I know we've moved away from small grants in the years past because of the cost it takes to execute the grant. Like, we'll spend almost more money creating the program and getting the money onto the street to the people that need it than we do the actual grant. And so I am very conscious of that. And so, but one thing that has been remarkable for downtown has been when patrons of businesses are outside the buildings, people go where people are. And one of my favorite stories of that is my dad at the car washes, and when it would be a cloudy day, he would take all the employee cars and park them out like customers, because then it would look like they're open and customers would go, oh, I'll get my car washed today. And so when you get your patrons as a restaurant out onto the sidewalk or outside your building, people go where there are people. And so I want to, a couple of these businesses there that are restaurants have asked me how the CRA help get them similar outdoor seating that downtown already has with our large sidewalks, because they don't have large sidewalks in those areas. And I'd love to see them, when you drive by, people outside, patrons eating and having a good time to increase their business. So this was something I threw together based on outdoor seating and things that it could include, checklists, approval letters, maybe that's outdoor lighting. Maybe this is a bad idea. I even linked similar programs in other cities. John Cady, I guess it was 2012 or early like that, when he owned Trigo, was spearheaded that parklet movement of getting the parklets out in the parking spaces. This wouldn't be in city parking. This would be on their property. So it's not quite the same thing. But that, to me, when Trigo got the seating outside, that spurred on a lot of, oh, that's really cool. And so I want to replicate that same movement of people being outside in a similar program for other districts that downtown has benefited from. I want to make this easy. And so, maybe someone wants to build a deck, but I don't want them to have to pull major permits. So I did a little research on that of, do we have to, well, I want to make this easy for people to, if they have a business, to get the grant and execute the grant and the purpose of the grant, which is getting people outside the business. So this is what I threw together. Thoughts? Bad idea?
I mean, I agree with the principle. And yes, you drive by a place and you see people outside. There's energy, there's activity. People are going to be drawn to that.
Yeah.
We have the cafe permit, and we love working with our downtown folks. Some do have larger areas than others.
Mm-hmm.
And depending on the width of the sidewalk, we've worked with a couple along Oak where they had to limit it to two, kind of a two top. And others are able to do more like 4, 6, or 8 tops, or depending on the size. But
Yeah.
I mean, I love that. That's the whole reason why we designed the downtown, and why we've made some other adjustments of some of the side roads like Oak and Fourth and everything, because we want to create that, both the accoutrement aspect to the sidewalk and also the pedestrian side aspect to the sidewalk. So
Yeah, and just touching on that, this isn't exactly like the cafe, because the cafe seating is a business taking over public parking that's in front of their business. This would be helping the business owner build or create an outdoor seating area, including chairs and tables and lights and maybe a speaker, some music. But a lot of this corridor isn't truly Main Street anymore, so they're not overtaking a parking space. They're simply creating. They may put it in their own parking lot, but they're not putting in a city parking space. Is the difference? This is really more just helping them overcome the barrier of cost to have outdoor seating, and nicer outdoor seating. Umbrellas and all those things that people notice.
So there's only 4 restaurants inside the Millville boundary, and 2 already have the outdoor seating cafe permit. And the CRA actually gave Gene's Oyster Bar 2 grants for theirs. So we've kind of already got a precedent for that.
Agreed. And I would say that the 3rd Street corridor in Millville is closer to a true Main Street than MLK and 5th. But we want to have the same values of, if downtown's getting those things, and so we have a gap on 5th Street of, it's not really Millville, what we think of as the Millville Main Street, and it's not downtown. And so it's kind of, I don't want to be left out either. And maybe this is a program that we do for a year and kill it. I'm not saying this lives on forever, but would love feedback from Janice or Brian. Maybe this is a silly, bad idea. Or maybe there's a better way to implement the same goal. But my goal is to get people outside sitting, and I know there are restaurants that want this.
Mr. Chairman, are you aware of the kind of the plans for like a streetscapes project on 3rd in Millville?
I have not seen that. I'd love to see it.
Who's better to speak to that?
Michelle.
You want to give a
What's
brief
going on,
overview
Michelle?
of kind of what's percolating?
Okay, so what we are currently looking into is
Excuse me. For those who don't know, online, we've got about 12 people streaming. Michelle Zorkel is one of our program managers in the CRA. Thank you.
we're currently looking into installing a pedestrian path that's about 8 feet wide that would start at Everett and go down 3rd to Maple, then go on Maple from 3rd to Business 90. This was an ask in the CRA socials that we had back in February, and we're currently pursuing getting a bond to be able to make this happen. And when doing the pedestrian path, we're also looking to reinforce the infrastructure, maybe lining the sewer line that runs on 3rd, as well as burying the utilities, and also installing a parking lot and bike safety village for the remainder of the waterfront where Maple and 3rd meet. And then also installing some new wayfinding signage and street signage, all of that within that bond project. That's what we're looking at right now.
Alan, sorry, Mr. Chairman, you're muted. Yeah.
You caught, and I said to you, nice quick draw there, buddy. I would love, what I don't want to do is, I love that idea, but what I'd really like is I could take a rough sketch if we have a survey of that road, and we could just draw in with Photoshop what we're talking about and then start pitching it to the neighborhood. I will literally drive down that corridor and hand it to put it on doors. I'd love to see the public get engaged with that idea before we spend money on engineering. I think they're going to love it. I think they're going to love it. But I want to get their buy-in much earlier, with the expectation it's not happening the next day. Oh, now you're muted, Jonathan.
I wasn't talking to you, sir.
Janice, I'd love feedback on this. If you think this is a good idea, if you think it's a bad idea, I kill it right here.
A couple of questions. One, Jonathan, you mentioned 4 restaurants in Millville. What are they?
What are the 4 restaurants in Millville?
There is the new Thai place. I think it's called Roy Thai.
Mhm.
They have an outdoor seating, and they are so packed all the time.
Right.
And then we have Get You a Box is now brick and mortar just down the road from them. Gene's Oyster Bar is on 3rd, and then at the Y there by near Bambi's is the Bistro, the Southern Bistro. Excellent food if you've never had it. That would be a great place for an outdoor seating, actually, because it's so well seen in Millville.
Well, and
Yeah, the challenge.
go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say the challenge there at the bistro is parking.
Right.
Because if we turn that little diamond point into parking, then I'm sorry, into the outdoor eating, we've got to do something for parking. Thai already has a parking problem. When they're really, really busy, people park on Bay Avenue. And coming to that intersection of Bay Avenue and little side street and then Business 98 with people parked along the roadway can be dangerous.
Well,
I say those things.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say I'd love to sit down with him. A lot of times, the backs of restaurants are often can be cleaned up and tucked away, and potentially this might be a program that says we're going to help you wrap your dumpster in a fence or consolidate this area to have more area on your property that, where your mop bucket goes and those kind of things. And you clean up that area to then have more seating, because a lot of it's space optimization. Look at the back of history class. We tuck all our stuff in behind a fence to create the area to sit. So I'd love to talk to him if you're interested in introducing me. A lot of times what I'm getting from a lot of people is, I would love to do a thing. I know we have only 4 or 5 people in this area, but someone will say, I'd love to open a thing there. How can you help me? And this would be a thing that I could say, well, if you open your restaurant here, we can help with outdoor. It gives us a tool, even if we haven't used it yet. It gives us something a carrot to get people to take action.
There's
So
also the work that's going on at Whittington Park, right across from the Thai restaurant and within probably 1,000 feet of Get You a Box. Will that have what's going there in that park? Staff, somebody.
The Whittington Park.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay.
It's the ECTA.
All right. So that's the FDOT beautification grant that we got about a year ago. That work should be done at the end of the month. They're installing all new Florida friendly plants and cleaning up the waterfront area on the south side of that US 98. Installing new irrigation and just making it a nice, pretty, beautiful entrance into the gateway into Millville.
So it'll be something more to look at, beautification, not to actually go and sit or play or be there.
Right. Correct.
Oh, okay.
It is on a major road.
To your question, do I like the idea? I can't really visualize it now, but I know I like what I see downtown. I like sitting outside and watching people come and go, or when I'm hastily moving, seeing the people who are able to just sit down and enjoy watching people come and go. And to the extent that we can give that experience in North Millville, that would be great. And I refer to North Millville as north of Business 98, Fifth Street, because that's well, it's not because that's where I live, but that's where I live, and my neighbor is really on a tear that we don't get much on that side, and it needs to be cleaned up, and property owners aren't doing, keeping their property up and that sort of thing. And while we may not have the appropriateness on Business 98 because traffic is moving fast, there are parcels that could be turned inward that could create those little nooks where people can go in for, a little restaurant action and enjoy sitting out, in the neighborhood that they can walk to, which is what we have in St. Andrews and in downtown, or they can golf cart to, which we now have. And we need something on the north side because they can't cross Business 98 in their golf carts.
Would it make the most sense since I really want Janice's buy-in and I don't want her to feel pressured in a first virtual meeting to be happy about everything I present to her? What if I went to a couple of the owners that are potentially in the program who are interested and sketched an idea out with them and brought it back to the next virtual meeting and showed it to everyone and said, here's what they could potentially do with our help? Would that help get more buy-in on the idea, or we could just kill the idea completely? You're not going to hurt my feelings.
No, I don't want to kill it. I just am not seeing it fully.
Totally. Well, I mean, I can come back with sketches with those folks if you want to introduce me to the Josiah's. Was it Josiah's? Josiah's?
No, that's the bistro.
Bistro.
Yeah.
And so I'm happy to sit down with Get You a Box and the Thai place and say, hey, here's what we could do. And I can sketch it out and they could pick out patio furniture. We could get more visuals and potential of what it could be and have them, maybe letters of excitement or something. What would be a good way to kind of build momentum of an idea?
I think that would be good. Also on that street, across from Snug Harbor, is a little event space called the Spot on 98.
Yeah.
And as an event space, having outdoor seating and what you're talking about, I think would be a good amenity to add there as well.
That's a great example. So I will table any other research on this. The next virtual meeting, I will come back with some rough sketches and just ideas of, I'll go into Google Maps and kind of draw where they would be interested in putting something. I'll look for letters of support from those people that are interested, and that'll give us more buy-in if we should be pursuing this or not. And that'll give you some visuals as well.
Thank you. And I've been looking for what you sent. I know I received it in the email, but I don't know who sent it. Jonathan, did you send me the Spark and the outdoor seating idea?
I did. Yeah, it was several weeks ago when the mayor gave it to me. I scanned it in and sent it. The Spark was in there, and then the outdoor seating thing was in there as well.
Okay, I'll look back for that. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. So I don't know. You reference another virtual workshop. I don't know if you want to. I know we have them now scheduled as far as the city's concerned on the 1st and 3rd of Monday of each month. I don't know. It's probably okay to talk about all things city and CRA December, or do we need to plan a separate CRA one, Mr. Zimmerman? Because there's not. Yeah, it is. I mean, they are separate issues. They're separate buckets of money, and
I like to keep them separate. That way, the staff doesn't have to sit in this long meeting. It becomes a 4-hour. I'd rather have small, quick meetings that are where people can digest them.
Hearing meetings are usually the first Tuesday.
Yeah. So the CRA meetings are typically the first Tuesday of every month. Of course, we kind of combine July and August until the end of July because of some travel, and then obviously to give us some additional time to hopefully finalize that development agreement. At the southwest corner of 15th and MLK. So I mean, we could find some time maybe in 2 or 3 weeks. To kind of circle back. Staff is available if Mr. Chairman, if you want to request us to help do some research, we're happy to do that. You alluded to the fact that we kind of get away from some of the smaller grants. There was also a very intentional direction made by the CRA board to really go after bigger projects. And so like reduce staff, reduce some of the smaller grants, and really try to make a bigger splash. And so that is the standing direction of the board. And until that so changes, we'll continue to work towards that and support that in any way. And I think things like this are great. So,
well, and I'd be happy to work on an incentive program to get restaurants built or things that the neighborhood wants in any corridor to get those things built. We're kind of already doing that with a grocery store, but Janice mentioned her neighbor, Steve, awesome guy, Bruner.
Yes. Yes.
And he said, I'd love to have a restaurant over here on 5th Street. And so, we potentially could take let's say we outlay 30 grand in cash for outdoor seating. You could hold that back and say, oh, if you open a restaurant, we're going to help you cover your impact fees or your permits through the CR or something like that. I'm happy to do both those in tandem. If that's what we want to work on, I'm happy to do that research. I guess I could just do it.
Yes. Yeah. No, business development is something we certainly need. And I think there are people who have ideas. There are people who have resources, but not the energy anymore.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a matter of connecting those folk together with a trusted path that ultimately results in folk having more things to do in their neighborhood that they enjoy. But I also like your idea that the ideas are shopped, if you will, with the neighbors and with the neighborhood, because ultimately they would be the ones supporting, the investment.
Yeah, and so anyone who's watching this video, I weigh in on these programs, how they're shaped, but also the opportunity costs we potentially could be putting into these that we should be doing something else. So if we outlay 20 grand of cash from the CRA program in Millville, is that a better spend for outdoor seating versus getting something else? And then define what something else is. So I'd love to hear that too. That's all I have for the CRA virtual workshop. Does anyone have anything else?
Nope, we've hit upon, the gathering. So again, thank you, Alan, for bringing this approach to working together. I appreciate it.
And just so for my own sanity, I'm looking at my calendar. Do we have another virtual workshop scheduled for the CRA?
Not, let me make sure I'm not muted. No, so not for, I'm looking at my calendar too, sir. Not for the CRA. We do have one. We have one on the, let's see here. We have one on the 16th, a week from, or I guess it's just coming Monday rather.
Yep.
We have one for the city. And then the following week, we have a commission meeting in the evening, and then you have a transportation impact fees workshop. That's on Thursday, the 26th. That's going to be in person.
Yep.
So, I hate, to do another evening. But we could potentially do it the week of the 23rd if you so desire. I could suggest maybe Wednesday.
Yeah, let's do it 2 weeks from today. Is that appropriate to schedule over a virtual workshop? How does that work? I guess I can call a workshop, can't I?
Yes, you or I could for sure, and so we'll schedule it for the same time 2 weeks from today.
Yeah.
With the same format and in the same guidelines. Absolutely.
So I will. Let's just say these two topics are on the agenda for next time, and we can always add more. So the public knows what we're going to be speaking about. When we post this video, can we please include all the commissioners' email addresses, including mine, of how to get in touch with us for feedback, and also encourage Facebook comments if we're posting on Facebook?
Absolutely. I will.
Can I get a copy of the video too?
Yeah, so it's going to be posted on the YouTube page, sir, just like we do all of our meetings.
Yep.
That was a directive given to the IT team, so they are recording this,
Perfect.
and in addition to streaming it live, and so it will be uploaded, first thing tomorrow morning to the website. We have a YouTube channel for the city of for the city, and so it'll absolutely be done. I don't know about adding documents to it, or maybe at the end of the video, I can ask them to display y'all's names and email addresses.
Comment. I could probably leave a comment with a link to that.
But people can always go to panamacity.gov and click on City Commission, and all of y'all's pictures and email addresses are all right there. So, I mean, that would be what I would say is go to panamacity.gov, click on Government and City Commission, and it's right there. Just everything that people need to be able to get a hold of y'all. And they can
And
also
feedback on the meeting. I want feedback on the meeting. If there's a
Yep.
different style or how we should be relaying this information to the public, this is just their first revision of an idea to be more transparent.
And I can ask, we'll ask Public Affairs to post the video on Facebook, and then also encourage comments in the Facebook comment section as well.
Please do.
And do we have any analytics of who's watching live stream?
11
Yeah.
Numbers, we may not know who the individuals are.
Yeah, I don't know that we're necessarily going to always know who they are, because sometimes people just put their phone number or their initials. We had 11 people that were watching virtually the live stream, and we had zero
Okay.
people show up in room 10, which we expected that, because if you have the capability to get alerted to the meeting, you're likely able to watch it as well. But yes.
All right, thank you.
Brian, anything else to add?
Yeah, I know I didn't have a lot to contribute to this conversation because of the focus of kind of where it's at. But I do like the format. So I just for kind of spitballing and looking at different things. So I look forward to different topics, especially when wearing the commissioner hat versus the CRA hat. So yeah, thank you.
Awesome.
Well, just as a reminder, the commission has set up to deal with commission issues the first and third Monday of every month at 4 p.m. A virtual workshop, and those will be publicized, and those are already scheduled.
Awesome. I'm excited. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank y'all.
you.
Yep, thank you.
All right, thank you.